Welcome to our newest installment of our Q&A series with Steve Martocci of Splice. Splice is a really cool product that I'll let Steve explain because he could probably do a much better job of it than I can. The way this works is that Steve and I are going to chat for a couple minutes. In the meantime, you'll have a chance to ask your question of Steve. Over on the right-hand side of this page, there's a little Ask widget, so just type your question in there. We're going to talk for a few minutes to let the viewer questions come in, and then we'll spend the rest of our time fielding. Steve will spend the rest of the time fielding your questions. So, Steve, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Yeah, well, I guess to start with, maybe you can just introduce everybody watching, tell them a little bit about what Splice is and what it does and why they should care.
Yeah, you know, when we think about Splice, we think about the transition that we've seen in music production that's kind of gone from the analog to the digital era. And then something kind of happened where the rest of the world went online and has gone to mobile and done these things, but music production has really remained this kind of isolated and fragmented thing with workflows that still kind of feel like you're in the 90s with large files and managing assets and external hard drives. And, you know, really what we wanted to do is come in and modernize the production workflow, the communities around it, the learning opportunities around it, and kind of bring music to the networked era. And so we do that through a couple different products kind of under the Splice umbrella. We've got our version control system that we call Splice Studio, which plugs into your DAW and kind of brings it to the cloud by giving you a free unlimited backup that's optimized for music, transfers extremely fast, saves every time you click save in your DAW like Ableton or Logic, we back it up, we put it on a timeline, you can go back in time, check out previous versions, easily collaborate with anyone you want to privately. We've got a way to actually visualize the sessions on the web, so you can leave each other annotations on specific clips, and really kind of create a way better collaborative experience around it. Additionally, we have a community where you can choose to, if you want, share your work publicly with the world. Whether you want to help teach someone how to, make a specific sound, or share one of your songs so that you can find collaborators or get some remixes of it. And it has become just a tremendous place to learn from the pros and great artists that in a new way of sharing that's kind of never been possible before. Usually we think of just the 2-channel audio, and now we've got the ability to share entire session files and stems, really get into the production process. We've got this cool DNA player that lets you visualize it, similar as I talked about on the private side, kind of a little bit like Rap Genius, where you can have annotations and all that, but it's actually on the music.
And again, on multi-track, right? So you can leave a comment like, "Wow, I love this snare sound." At the same time, you're leaving a comment about how much you like the hi-hat at the same time.
Yeah, right now it's mostly for the user to tell their story behind the song, but we can bring the commenting right to that layer as well on the public side. What's cool too is we show you all the plugins and sounds that the track uses. So we've got a plugin store and probably the world's largest database of all audio plugins ranked by actual usage data. So you can go find and discover great plugins and see how they're used in other people's songs. And some of them you can buy right on our platform, and there's a bunch of free ones you can grab as well.
Well, I know there's a lot of different things that your product can do. Can you kind of walk us through what you've seen as a couple of the most popular use cases?
Yeah, I mean, kind of focusing on 3 different sides of it, right? The single player experience is you by yourself making music. We like to say we help you make music, better, faster, and really like safer, if you will, because we say it lets you create fearlessly, and basically just click save. There's no more collect all and save you have to worry about, no more hard drive backups. We literally, as soon as you click save in the DAW, we find all the assets, we get them onto the timeline, and you're safe. So I think that single player experience alone is great. And of course, for collaboration, it's wonderful. It's just like such a better way to work instead of being in Dropbox, overriding each other's changes, not knowing who did what, not being able to comment on the specific changes and why you made them. And opening that up, I think, is just great for really people working remotely. And then finally, I guess the third, if I had to pick best thing, is just discovering, learning from other artists at the session file level. It's just there's never been a way to dive into this. And the comments we get when people get to see how their favorite artists make tracks, there's some big tracks on there from people like Tiesto and Laidback Luke, and really interesting stuff to dive into.
Well, so you mentioned a couple of those artists. One of the things that impresses me the most about Splice is the team that you've assembled. Can you kind of talk about who you have both on your side and artists and partners and stuff like that you're working with?
Yeah, when you think about the team, right at its core, my co-founder Matt Aminetti is just one of the best. He was like my programming hero. He's a major contributor to the Ruby on Rails framework. One of the best. Like, he's written a book on Go. So right at the core of the engineering team and the people who work at Splice, the entire team, our designers, our QA team, everybody is just doing a fantastic job internally. And then in addition to that, we've got this great set of investors with Union Square Ventures and True Ventures kind of leading the way on the venture side for us, and are just such believers in introducing this concept of the network to music production. And we've seen what it has done in the source code world of us being able to work together as programmers, and everything we've been able to take advantage of there, like, just hasn't come to this entire industry yet. So we couldn't be more excited to have those guys driving us along. And then also we've got these great industry investors. Tiesto is an investor. We've got Steve Angelo as an investor. Scooter Braun is an investor. A bunch of the agencies as well. Great guys at the +8 guys. It's basically like the best part is it's when you show the artists the platform, they get so excited about it. And, like, seeing the actual reactions from their face when they get to use it and see it, it's a very authentic love for what we're doing.
Yeah, whenever I've described it to somebody, I just show them a screenshot and they instantly are like, oh shit, like, finally somebody made that.
Yeah.
And it actually works.
Yeah. I remember, Tiesto's reaction when he first saw it, and was like, "Well, this is the future." Like, it was so quick. And it's funny in music because it's hard to get to these people sometimes. Like, you have layers and layers of people that are between you and the artist when you're a tech platform trying to come in and meet them.
Right.
And like, they'll be like, "I don't even know if I should show this to them." But the best part is once you start getting all the way through the reaction, everyone's so happy about it. So,
right, exactly.
We've luckily now that the word is spreading from artist to artist because they're collaborating with each other on the platform, when we go to some of these electronic music festivals and we see like what percentage of the people using it are on Splice, it's pretty amazing. So, it's once the artists see it, they love it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I feel like you were saying with audio production software, it's kind of like 10 or 15 years behind where every other software category is. It's like still shockingly buggy, kind of crappy UIs that feel like they're from 2001, and it's one of those things where you knew that somebody was going to make Splice, but they didn't, and you did. You knew it was coming someday, but you did it.
Yeah, the thing that's interesting about it, though, is these guys, like, they're so good at making sound. Right? Like, they've done, like, while it may be the workflow may be behind, like, the ability for what we can do in these digital audio workstations is so powerful.
Yeah.
It's just this long learning curve and hard, the modern software expectation now is usually this, like, much higher, easier learning curve, much prettier UI. So, like, all the power is there. And, we kind of look at ourselves, like, even the process of buying a plugin. Like, you try to buy some of these major plugins and they can be a 45-minute process of finding the right page, purchasing it, downloading an installer, running that installer, updating this, and like, wow, that's not even the purchasing experience.
And then make sure you don't actually ever check this box in the plugin because that'll crash your DAW.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think a lot of those things is the people who really love creating the software. I mean, it's amazing when you look at the, mom and pops, the single developer that is building some of the most powerful synthesizers in the world. It's
that's true. Isn't it just one guy that makes like Silent One?
Yep, Leonard. Steve Duda makes Serum. It's like, I've seen Steve take a customer support call, like during the day, we had a meeting with him and he just picks up the phone and he's dealing with people's support issues. It's the same guy who's making one of the most powerful synths in the world. So, I think that there's major problems with the industry on the kind of creator side. And we think Splice coming in can help change a lot of that because, we've got better data. We've got a great way of doing a user experience people really want. And, we're really hoping to cut down on a lot of the piracy and things that go on by delivering the user experience that people kind of come to either both deserve and expect at this point.
Well, you guys have a really elegant solution, I think, for working with plugins, which I wanted maybe you to explain a little bit, because the question would be, so if you and I are collaborating on something and I'm using a plugin that you don't have or vice versa, how does Splice solve for that?
Yeah, so there's how Splice solves for it today and how Splice really wants to solve for it. And where we are today is basically the first thing, is just telling you what plugins are needed. It's unbelievable how, you might want to collaborate with someone and you open up the track and you just get a warning, VST not found. No link to go get the plugin, no way of even really knowing. You have this little piece you can copy and paste and try to identify it. So what's great is while you're working right from the timeline or any public project, you can actually see all the plugins that the track uses. You can go check if you can either learn more about them or buy them right from the Splice platform. And there's a lot more we want to do around that, from just if you detecting whether or not your collaborator has it and warning you that you should freeze that track. We've also got a very powerful plugin SDK that we've written that we're talking to manufacturers about adopting to do simpler things like subscription and one-click buying and all that kind of stuff. So, and then also we have a small set of paid plugins available for sale with a one-click purchase now, and a bunch of the free ones too. So we're working on building the database, building the way, simplifying the buying process, easily identifying when you need these things, and just making the whole thing easier.
Cool. Well, we've got some good viewer questions come in. Before I get to those, I did want to ask you about two new features, collections and save anywhere. If you can tell us a little bit about those.
Totally. Yeah, so, we're trying to always solve for a lot of different types of users in Splice. And sometimes there are people who've never used a DAW before, all the way up to these massive kind of stars who use the platform. And the people, when they got really invested in Splice and they're using it for all their work, we just had one long list of all the projects you're working on and no good way of organizing them. So collections is kind of like tagging. It's a way to simply, mark either an album you're working on or the state of a project. You can drag them right in from your studio and really give the organization that our power users have been asking for. We were really excited about getting that one out. It was the #1 most requested feature by power users, and that's it. The other one that we think is really interesting, and we just started turning this on for new users by default, is the Save Anywhere concept, which before, we have two ways you can work with Splice, either by saving into the Splice folder, which is more of a Dropbox-like approach to things, or the Save Anywhere option, which is basically just save. And as soon as you save in your DAW, a little box will appear at the top asking if you want to track the project in Splice or not. If you say yes, from now on, every save you do to that project is backed up no matter where it lives, on your external hard drive, anywhere in your folders. It's just kind of this total peace of mind when you're doing the work. So we're really excited to get that out there, because even the times when we've worked in the studio and done a jam session or something, and we're like, okay, we got to save this, we got to remember where to save it to. The smallest amount of friction after you finally got all these devices working together and you finally have a good moment can make you not use it properly. So all the friction we can remove from the process to let artists just create fearlessly is what we're trying to do.
Cool. Well, let's get to some viewer questions. I'll start with an obvious one, but a good one from Benjamin Mariano. What is the major difference between Splice and, for example, Gobbler?
Well, I mean, I think that we're really trying to attack some different problems here. I mean, the Gobbler guys, I've known, been very close with the studio world in LA. They work with Pro Tools. They do these things. They're going through a kind of new versioning now, but for us, it was basically about that really collaborative experience on the web, where we give you all the versions, we visualize this, we make it so it's kind of like this network layer for you going forward. I suggest you just come into the platform and give it a try. And compare the two if you're a user of a different platform now, and just take a look for yourself.
Cool. Another kind of obvious question from Captain Gronk, obvious but good one, is do you guys plan on supporting more DAWs in the future? If so, which ones, when?
Man, that's a good question. We always want to expand. We want to bring Splice to everybody. The issue with that is like we really do a lot supporting Splice. Like the DNA player and all the things we do to create that kind of magical experience takes some work. So our general philosophy now has been to make sure that we support the ones that we support extremely well, and then also build a lot of services that are valuable to people who may not be on the DAWs that we use, that are available to everybody, like STEM support in the community. The plugin stuff we do doesn't require your DAW. There's some more stuff coming that isn't DAW specific as well. And as we feel like we've got that platform locked down, we'll continue adding support for more DAWs. More DAWs will be supported this year. We do have the priority list, but I don't want to make any promises because as we're doing some of our work and like making sure that experience is good, some are more difficult than others. But in terms of the list of the major ones that users are requesting, I think they'll be happy with what we'll support by the end of the year.
So all the ones that you would want are on the list and you're getting to them as fast as you can?
Definitely.
Yeah. So anonymous user wants to know, Splice is an awesome service. It seems like it's free though. I'm wondering how you guys plan on making money.
Yeah, so great question. And it's one that, people always get worried, like, well, what are these guys doing? How are they doing this? And, we currently already do make money through our plugin store. And we'll continue to bring more and more features to the users that are premium services and things that enhance their process. The good news is the backup, we plan to always be free and unlimited. The version control system for us, like that's just like table stakes. We don't think competing at that file storage level. I don't want you to think about like, oh, I have a Dropbox account. Should I get a Splice account for backing up and versioning? We never want that to be on the table. So rest assured that if you're using the platform and the features that are there and you love, they're always there for you. And there'll be just better and better, more stuff coming from you that I think users are going to be extremely excited about. That will be good.
Well, it's nice that they're concerned about your welfare. I'm happy to hear that your audience, that they care.
It's not going to go. Good news.
Yeah. So here's a question I was kind of wondering about, since I primarily produce, I guess you would say rock. Are there plans to make Splice more friendly with audio-centric projects? I realize the focus right now is on electronic production, so small file sizes for MIDI are common. I've tried using Splice for some collaborative rock producing, but had to ditch it due to syncing issues with a large amount of audio. So we did get, I wanted to make sure you knew that your developer, Zach, chimed in with an answer in the chat room, so hats off to Zach for that, but thought I would give you a chance to answer it as well.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting because I'd love to know when that user made the change, because we had this period of time where we were in public beta, and really like we were solving a lot of these large file transfer issues. And I think now the system is actually very well optimized for rock projects and large files. Like if the files, one of the things that were more interesting recently was like files that did cross a multi-gigabyte per audio sample level could have run into some issues on the Mac client, and that's totally resolved at this point. And we just needed reports of it. The good news is we really listen to feedback. So I think if that user is watching, reach out, let's talk, because I honestly think that we are ready for everything. The people that we talk to that are using our platform are not just electronic music producers. They are using it for extremely large files. And they're getting a lot of the benefits that we do with some of the lossless compression and transfers and all that stuff that make it actually perform up to 10 times faster than Dropbox times too.
Wow. Cool. Well, I got a couple more questions here before we head out that I had. I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about your focus on education with Splice. You mentioned that as one of the use cases. Can you kind of talk about how it's useful as a tool for educators to connect with their students and share projects, and how you've seen that play out in the wild?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple different fronts of it. First, just browsing our community for all the projects that people have shared is just like a treasure trove of data that's never been shared before. So being able to go on there and see, how, Tiesto and Kashmir did the drop from Secrets and all these other great things. Great way to find stuff. We've also did a partnership with some of the biggest YouTube creators to do a Learn with Splice series where we embed their videos along with the Splice project. And there's a nice series at splice.com/learn with Splice. So a lot of these educators are using the Splice to be the host for the materials for some of their video resources as well. And then I guess on the more even classroom side of it, we've got reports of, a lot of schools and audio tutors and things like that are now teaching their classes on Splice. And they have some feature requests that we know we can make it better for them to manage groups and do things along those lines. So we're actively working on improving the Learn with Splice concept, this educational concept from both, finding stuff for the community all the way to using it inside classrooms.
Cool. Well, one last question from a viewer, which I think is a really good example of kind of the things that Splice enables you to do that really weren't practical until now is, can you collaborate with people using two different DAWs? I use Ableton, my friend uses Logic. Can you talk about how Splice makes that possible?
Yeah, well, that's the magic question, right? So I think that in our journey, it is an objective of ours to get to that point where it makes that really possible. The thing that we're doing now to improve that is getting the stem-based workflow to a really good place, which is kind of the stems are kind of the lowest common denominator of like people kind of being able to work with each other the way they want to. But I think what is magical about Splice is you're seeing this kind of like intermediary representation of the content outside the DAW. And I think that if you bear with us over time as we learn more and more about how this stuff works, that dream someday can become a seamless reality. So really what we're trying to do is free you from any kind of, walled garden experience where you can't let your creativity flow. And so, you're right in line with our objectives to let your creativity flow across the world.
Cool. Well, that's about all we got time for. Steve, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to learn more about Splice, head over to splice.com. Whether you make rock or electronic music, I highly suggest you check it out. It's really cool stuff. It will definitely change the way you work and work with other people. So hopefully we'll be chatting with you more in the future. And until then, I guess enjoy the rest of the week.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take care.
This is great. See ya.